haven't slept in 2 days. The ship keeps rocking somewhere down the corridor, a door slams shut and doesn't open again. The PA system crackles, the captain's voice comes through, tight and controlled, the kind of voice that has been rehearsed. Ladies and gentlemen, we are asking all passengers to remain in their cabins until further notice. Nobody explains why. They never explain why. You press your face against the porthole. Gray Atlantic, no land, no other ships, just water going in every direction forever. Your phone has 3 bars of satellite signal. You open the news app. You see your ship's name in the headline, and your stomach drops through the floor. You booked this trip 14 months ago. Antarctica, the Drake Passage, remote islands in the South Atlantic that barely appear on maps. You paid more than you'd ever spent on anything in your life. You told everyone, your mother, your coworkers, the guy at the post office. You showed them the brochure like a kid with a permission slip. The MV Hondius left Ushuaia on April 1st. You remember thinking the date was funny? There were around 150 of you, passengers from Spain, France, the UK, the US, crew from the Philippines. A retired German professor, a Dutch couple in their 70s who had been birdwatching across South America for months. They were the kind of people who made you feel better about getting older. Calm, curious, happy. On day 4, the Dutchman didn't come to breakfast. You didn't think anything of it. Seasickness. The Drake Passage is famous for it. The waves hit the hull like trucks. By day 7, his wife stopped coming too. The ship's doctor visited their cabin twice. You only noticed because the corridor outside their room started to feel different, quieter than it should be. Day 10, a crew member in gloves and a mask wheeled a trolley past your door. You caught it through the gap. IV bags, plastic sheeting, equipment you didn't recognize. You sent your partner a voice note. Something's a bit off here, but I'm sure it's nothing. Don't worry. You were still lying to yourself. Then, the Dutchman died on April 11th. They didn't announce it. You found out the way you find out everything on a ship with 150 anxious people. Someone heard something, told someone else, and by lunch, the dining room was half empty. The captain held a meeting. Everyone crammed into the main lounge. He stood at the front with the ship's doctor and a woman you hadn't seen before who turned out to be an epidemiologist the company had patched in by satellite call. He said the word hantavirus. You didn't know what that was. Most people didn't. Someone near you Googled it immediately and went white. The epidemiologist explained it. Rodent-borne, rare, causes your lungs to fill. No vaccine, no cure. Treatment is just keeping you alive long enough for your body to figure it out. The fatality rate sits around 25%. She said the Andes strain, the one they were dealing with, was the only hantavirus known to spread between people. The room went very still. Main lounge, the ship. Day 11, you started counting 14 days since you boarded. The incubation period is 1 to 8 weeks, which means if you were exposed on day 1, you might not know for another month. You did the math 3 times, hoping you'd get a different answer. The Dutch woman was medically evacuated to South Africa. 2 days later, you watched the helicopter from the deck. She was strapped into a stretcher, her face covered. She died in a hospital in Johannesburg the next day. That made 2. The island's health authority took their details and let them fly home. You watched them leave from the same deck where the helicopter had taken the old woman. You didn't wave. The ship turned north toward the Canary Islands, toward home. The bridge, day 19, the captain received the message from the Canary Islands government at 11 p.m. The president of the islands had gone on TV. He said he could not allow the ship to enter. He said the word danger. He said the word obligation. He said his people had lived through COVID and he would not put them through that again. 147 people floating nowhere to go. The company put out a statement. They said Spain had a moral and legal obligation to help. Some journalist found your Instagram somehow and sent a DM asking if you'd like to share your experience. You put the phone face down on the bunk and stared at the ceiling. Cabin 14 night, a third passenger died. German, a man you had shared a table with on day 2. He had ordered the fish. He had talked about his grandchildren. He had laughed at something you said, and you couldn't even remember what. You started wearing your mask everywhere. You stopped touching the handrails. You stopped using the shared bathrooms. You ate alone. You stopped eating much at all. A British passenger, a woman around 40, was airlifted to Johannesburg, critical but stable. The announcement came over the PA in the same flat captain's voice. You were starting to hate that voice. 6 confirmed cases now, 8 suspected. The WHO was involved. The CDC had classified it as a level 3 emergency, and the ship just kept moving north. The ship anchored offshore for 3 days. The local facilities couldn't handle a safe evacuation. Nobody disembarked. You watched the island from the rail, close enough to see buildings, close enough to see cars moving, a world that was continuing without you. Someone on board started a group chat. 140 people in it within an hour. Someone posted the WHO risk assessment. Someone else posted a Reddit thread where people were arguing about whether the ship should be sunk. That one you closed immediately. Deck 4, Cape Verde coastline in the distance. The Spanish government finally overruled the Canary Islands president. The ship would dock in Tenerife. The WHO Director General went on TV and told the islanders this was not COVID, that the risk to them was very low, that these were people who needed help. You watched the press conference on your phone in your cabin. The WHO director was calm and measured. You appreciated it and also couldn't fully hear it over the blood in your ears. Tenerife came into view on a Tuesday morning. You were on deck when you saw it. So was everyone else. Quiet. Nobody cheered. Nobody talked. You just stood there watching land get closer. And some people were crying. And some people were looking at their shoes. And you were somewhere in between. The evacuation was organized by nationality. Dedicated vehicles. Specific routes. No contact with the general public. You walked down the gangway with your one bag. A medic in full protective equipment took your temperature and handed you a document listing the symptoms to watch for over the next 8 weeks. 8 weeks you sat in a plastic chair in a closed-off section of the terminal and waited for your connecting flight home. 2 officials in hazmat suits stood near the door, not threatening. Just present, you opened your phone, 47 missed calls, 200 messages. Your partner had booked a flight to meet you at the airport. Your mother had lit a candle. You looked at the document in your hand. 8 weeks of waiting. 8 weeks of checking your temperature every morning. 8 weeks of waking up in the night and cataloging your symptoms. Headache? Is that a headache? Fever? Do I feel warm? 8 weeks of being not sick but not safe. You flew home on a government charter window seat. You kept the window shade down. The man who started it all, the Dutch birdwatcher who had walked through Patagonia for 4 months before boarding, who had shaken your hand at the welcome dinner, had been dead for 3 weeks by the time you landed. You quarantined at home for the first 2 weeks. Your partner brought meals to the bedroom door. You watched the news cover the story from inside the story. Analysts, experts, politicians arguing about port access and public health law. Your ship appearing in graphics alongside words like cluster and containment and risk. On day 53, you woke up and took your temperature. 36.4 normal. You sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. Then you got up, made coffee, opened the window. Outside, the street was doing what streets always do. Traffic, someone walking a dog, the ordinary world that had kept going while you were floating on the Atlantic with nowhere to dock. You picked up the brochure from the nightstand. Antarctica, remote islands, the kind of places barely on maps. You put it in the bin. If you made it out of this one, smash that like button. And subscribe, because next week we're going somewhere even worse.